I always thought that danger came from strangers. Until the day I found it in my own blood. My name is Anita. And the person who tried to kill me was my sister. Everyone said Anita was perfect. She was the one with the brightest smile, the highest grades, the flawless skin, and the calm voice that could soothe a hurricane. In their quiet town of Umuokpa, where everyone knew everyone, her name was often whispered with admiration. Anita is going to become a doctor, people would say with pride, as though they had raised her themselves. And then there was Ruth, her younger sister by just 1 year. Where Anita walked, praise followed. Where Ruth stood, silence often lingered. They were daughters of Chief Imo and Madam Onika, respected community leaders. The family lived in a large compound at the edge of the village, a house surrounded by orange trees and high walls. But inside those walls, resentment brewed like a pot of bitter leaf soup left too long on fire. Ruth had learned early to step back. If she spoke, Anita spoke louder. If she danced, Anita's hips swayed with more grace. If she got a B+, Anita had an A+. But it wasn't the grades or the beauty that finally broke her. It was Andrew. Andrew was their neighbor's son. He had returned from Lagos, where he had been studying engineering. Tall, dark, with a voice like warm honey, Andrew had once been Ruth's closest childhood friend. They would run barefoot under the rain, jump into the stream behind the house, and make plans to leave the village together one day. When Andrew returned as a man, Ruth felt her stomach twist with excitement. He was everything she had imagined, confident, kind, and still remembered the nickname he gave her as children, Ruthie. But within weeks, Anita swooped in. Suddenly, Andrew stopped calling Ruth. He no longer stopped by her window to talk about the stars or bring her puff-puff wrapped in newspaper. Now, it was Anita he walked with after evening mass. Anita he invited to the youth talent show. Anita he was rumored to be courting. Ruth burned. Every night, she would lie awake, staring at the ceiling fan slowly turning above her bed, imagining Anita's face, always glowing, always smiling, and wished it would melt away. What did she have that Ruth didn't? She had to do something. Ruth knew Andrew still had a soft spot for her, even if it was buried. So, she began her plan slowly. First, she started showing up where Andrew was, choir practice, youth meetings, even the evening football games. She wore her best clothes, smiled brightly, and laughed at his jokes. But it was Anita who always won. When Anita entered the room, conversations paused. Her presence was magnetic. Even when she was quiet, Andrew looked at her like she was the sun. Ruth's bitterness began to grow teeth. One day, she overheard her mother say, "Andrew is a good match for Anita. They are both intelligent and from respected families." Ruth stormed out of the kitchen, her chest heaving. "What about me? What am I?" That night, she went to the herbalist. The herbalist, Mama Uju, lived at the far end of the village, past the mango grove. Her hut was dark, filled with the smell of burnt leaves and wet earth. Ruth stood at the threshold, trembling. "I need something," she whispered. Mama Uju didn't ask questions. Her eyes, cloudy with cataracts, seemed to see straight into Neoma's soul. "Jealousy is a dangerous fire, child," the old woman rasped. "It burns both the victim and the one who lights it." "I don't care," Ruth said. "I just want her to disappear." The herbalist gave her a small brown bottle and a warning: a single drop in her food will make her weak. But if you give her more than 3, she may never wake again. Ruth took it and ran. The next morning, Anita was seated on the veranda, dressed in her white gown, brushing her long braids. She looked like a goddess. Andrew arrived moments later, carrying guavas. "Morning, my queen," he joked. Ruth watched from the kitchen, her fist clenched. Later, when their mother asked her to prepare yam porridge for lunch, Ruth knew it was time. She stirred the food slowly, her heart pounding. The brown bottle sat next to the salt. She unscrewed the cap and let one drop fall in. Then another. Then a third. She hesitated. And poured the fourth. Anita collapsed that afternoon. She barely touched the food but complained of dizziness, nausea, and burning in her throat. By nightfall, she was unconscious. Their mother wailed. Their father rushed to fetch the village doctor. Prayers were said. People gathered. The house turned to chaos. Ruth watched it all, silent. She had expected relief. Victory. But all she felt was empty. Andrew was devastated. He never left Anita's side. When he wasn't praying over her, he was pacing, tears rolling down his face. "You have to wake up," he whispered. "Please, don't leave me." Ruth's stomach twisted. Had she really meant to kill her own sister? Anita survived. After 2 days of fevered hallucinations and near-death symptoms, she woke up. Her voice was weak, her limbs frail. But she smiled at Ruth when she saw her. "I missed you," she croaked. Ruth burst into tears and ran to the bathroom. There, she opened the medicine cabinet and took out her sister's diary. She had always known where Anita hid it. She flipped through the pages, searching. What she found crushed her. "I know Ruth likes Andrew. I tried to ignore it, but I think he likes me. I wish I could make them both happy, but how can I give up love? Sometimes, I see the way Ruth looks at me. I wish she knew I love her, even when we fight. She will always be my best friend before anyone else." Ruth dropped the book. She hadn't just tried to kill her sister, she had tried to kill the one person who loved her unconditionally. The guilt ate her alive. For days, she avoided Anita's room. But then, one night, she entered quietly and knelt beside her sister's bed. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I did something horrible. You don't remember, but you should hate me." She reached into her dress and brought out the brown bottle, placing it beside Anita's pillow. "I can't carry this anymore." She left. But someone had been listening. 2 nights later, the police came. Andrew had found the bottle. He handed it to Chief Ick. It was sent for testing. Ruth was arrested. The news shook the village. Chief Ick refused to speak. Madame Onika wept for days. Anita, still recovering, begged them to release her sister. "It was a mistake," she cried. She wasn't thinking straight. But attempted murder was no light accusation. Ruth confessed. She didn't fight it. In court, she stood tall and said, "I was jealous. I let hatred win. I don't deserve forgiveness." The judge sentenced her to 4 years in prison. That day, as she was led away in handcuffs, she looked back once, at her mother, at her father, at Anita, and mouthed, "I'm sorry." 2 years later, Anita came to visit her in prison. Ruth had changed, thinner, quieter, her eyes dull with regret. "I wrote you," Anita said, sitting across the table. "You never replied. I don't deserve your kindness. You're my sister." There was a long silence. Ruth looked down at her hands. "Do you still see him?" Anita shook her head. "He moved to Port Harcourt. We haven't spoken in over a year." "I'm sorry," Ruth whispered again. Anita reached across the table and touched her hand. "I forgave you the moment I woke up," she said. "But forgiveness is not for you to demand. You have to earn it." Tears ran down Ruth's cheeks. "I'll try." As Anita left, Ruth looked through the glass one last time, watching the sister she tried to kill walk away, still strong, still glowing, but now with a wound no one could see. A scar that would remind them both of what love, envy, and redemption really meant. If this story moved you, if it made you think twice about love, jealousy, or forgiveness, then don't scroll away. Subscribe to African Tales by Laura for more deep, emotional stories that stay with you long after the screen fades.